Welcome to this week's episode of the Inspired Evolution. It is an absolute treat, as always, to have you here. And if you're enjoying these episodes, feel free to subscribe. We love having you around. Leave us a comment in YouTube so I can write back to you. This week, we have on the show Dafna Lender. Dafna's really awesome. She's talking about playfulness and how to keep playfulness alive in parenting. She believes that playfulness is actually something that's quite profound and it has a lot of healing woven into the abilities of play. This is a conversation for people that are potentially thinking about having kids or have young kids or have any trauma that's embedded within their relationships that they would like to iron out. It is quite amazing, some of the stuff she has to share in terms of some of these simple practices that can really create a massive shift. There's a lot of hope in this podcast for relationships. There's a lot of guidance. So hopefully you get a lot of that out of this. So stay tuned, tune in to this wonderful conversation, and I will see you there. Aside from my soul. Welcome to the Inspired Evolution, and we have with us this week Dafna Lender. Dafna, how are you?
I am happy to be with you.
It's such a pleasure to have you here today. For those tuning in for the first time to Dafna's work, she's a clinical social worker, certified dyadic development psychotherapist. Her area of expertise is actually helping children. But there is a lot going on in the background there. And I think the key thing that inspired me to have this conversation with you today, if I'm thinking about a few words in my head, it's the profundity of play.
Awesome. That's right.
Tell us a little bit about how you got into this, Dafna.
Well, my journey started as a young social worker. And the first job I got was taking children who were in a residential placement. In other words, they lived in an institution from age 6 to 12. And then I was charged with putting them in a pre-adoptive home I would match the family with the child and then accompany them on this journey and hope that they would be able to live happily ever after. However, nobody was prepared for the cataclysmic events that would happen in the home when the child actually showed their true self, that they're super afraid of the intimacy of the parent-child relationship, that one-to-one bond, that parent who's always looking out for you, always in your face, always wanting to know how you feel. And the children are so afraid of that they would do the most destructive things. Like, I had one kid cut the curtains in the living room, another kid defecated in a corner. It was just so tragic for me. And from there, I thought, okay, I'm either going to leave this profession after having dedicated so much time and money, or I'm going to get the skills. And I just went on this search to find the methods and the perspectives that were going to help make a difference with these really damaged kids who had been previously abused and neglected and who had gone through so many losses. Nobody even knew their history sometimes. So that's what brought me to this, what I think of as an integrative attachment family therapy perspective of working on the parent-child relationship from the attachment perspective, but it encompasses a whole lot more. It encompasses many aspects of the parent, and their attachment history, as well as a very physiologic perspective on how our nervous system and our physiology interacts with one another as parent and child. So it's I would call it very organic and very sort of instinctual, very embodied.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I do want to find out what you found as some of the best approaches to navigating your way, like through some of these challenges that you mentioned. I'm hoping potentially in that if I can pre-program a response. How dare I?
Yeah.
To sort of also wonder what were some of the things that were disrupting children's intimacy with their parents.
Oh, okay. So when a child is first born and their attachment system is primed and ready to connect with their primary caregiver, if that primary caregiver is not safe, is not attuned and responsive, the infant will find a whole bunch of ways to adapt to their parent to make it so that they could get the most amount of caregiving possible. And that means that they have to change the way they feel and the way what their needs are, how they want to behave, and match it to what the parent's expectation is. And if a parent is abusive or neglectful chronically when the baby is young, what's going to happen is this child is going to grow up completely mistrusting of any vulnerability or being able to show their true selves. And then they are taken out of those abusive situations, but those patterns are still completely rooted in their soul, in their DNA, it's in their cellular expression by this point. And so they see any adult who really wants to take care of them as a menace, and they will push in the most primitive ways to say, I won't let you reject me. And so I'm going to do the most disgusting or the most disturbing things to show you that you don't want me, so that I don't feel that that it is, I don't want to feel the rejection. So I'll reject you first. And it's really beyond any kind of normal day-to-day like psychology approach that you would do with typically developing kids, like giving them a sticker for every time they clean their room or finished their dinner or something like that. That doesn't work at all.
So what does work?
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing is radical acceptance, which is so hard with these kids, but we cannot change them in a through any sort of modeling or providing guidance or providing consequences, things that we think of when kind of molding a child. We need to give them presence and acceptance on a really, really basic level. So they need someone who is steady, who is looking at them, but is not kind of getting in too close and demanding intimacy from them. So at the beginning could be just a very, very quiet and reassuring presence with a lot of safety in terms of, making sure that all the things that are dangerous are out of the house, like, in my case, literally like taking out the knives from the home or other dangers, and sharing really, really basic experiences like playing in soap bubbles or making mashed potatoes together or digging in earth, things, and or just the very, very sensory things that you would do with infants, with no demands or expectations for them to thank us or to show, that they're learning something. So it's this really simple, radical acceptance that they need first to feel like, okay, maybe, just maybe I can be safe and take a breath and like start looking around and being like, oh, there's another person here. Maybe they're interesting. I don't know. I might give it a chance.
Wow, that does sound a bit radical. I've at the risk of sort of pointing any fingers, how does, like, I'm yet to meet, or how does a parent not have expectations?
Yeah. So I think that the child that I'm talking about who was abused and neglected and is doing these, really horrendous things is just an extension of what a typically developing child who grows up in a loving home is also doing, which is they have their own set of wishes, beliefs, motives, dreams, talents, and parents are constantly trying to put their expectations on their child and make it so that the child sort of bears witness to what the parents' greatest values are. And so that's really the challenge of being a parent, is being able to check oneself and one's expectations and really be able to pause and figure out what is this conflict about? Because the conflicts are endless with children. And every time that we have a conflict with a child, we have to check ourselves and figure out what is it that we are, what is the sort of underneath the drive that we're trying to get met through our child, and stop and sort of let that go so that we can figure out what is this kid really saying to me. So it isn't, having no expectations is impossible, but you have to really let go of a lot of expectations if you want to have a harmonious relationship with your child. And the people who will do it for the kids that are really, the toughest kids, I mean, hats off to them, because really there's so much challenge personally when you're a foster parent to this kind of child. And yet these children are literally the greatest teachers of the world, because actually they're such survivors, and they have such resilience, and they can blossom and give you hope for the world in a way no other phenomenon can. So it's really worth it, is what I would say.
And in the example, thank you for sharing that. And in the example that you shared was the task that you were encouraging, like doing mashed potatoes or something of the sort. They're simplified, they're stripped back,
Mhm.
they're playful. Tell us a little bit about what play means to you. I guess is probably a great place to start. What does play mean to you?
Right. So I'll tell you a few things, and I'll tell you a story. Play to me is when you're in the moment with a person and the whole world falls away, in terms of like, you're not worried about the time, or you're not noticing anything else, any distractions, because you're in the here and now, and you're sharing a moment, and there's eye contact and laughter, there's moments of surprise, there's movement, there is a dancing quality about it, where there's like a give and take and reciprocity, and there's oftentimes a little bit just of being really silly, and this is the source of joy for kids, and really for all people, and that's why people love to still to play and dance together. But it's just the energy that gives you hope for what is it to be connected with another person. It's just that moment where I look at you and you look at me, we do something or say something funny, we both have the same intention, and we explode with laughter, and it's that sense of just real connection and joy. So our games, my activities that I would do with a parent and child, they're not competitive, and they don't involve a lot of rules, and they are basically really just very face-to-face, movement-oriented, sharing kinds of activities. So it wouldn't be a board game, and it certainly wouldn't be a video game. And I'll give you an example, if that's okay. I worked with a 12-year-old girl. She came in, she had been adopted at age 10 from a foreign country where she lived in foster care, and she was miserable. It was really a neglectful experience. And her adoptive mom came to me after this girl had been in her home for 2 years, and said, this girl hates me. She won't talk to me. She won't even tell me how her day at school was. She thinks I'm disgusting. She won't let me sit next to her at the dinner table. And one time when the mom said, I wanted to check if she had a fever, so I put my hand on her forehead, she said, ew, don't touch me, and would have these rages that would be ostensibly over nothing, like you didn't get the right food didn't get the right ramen or something from the store. And she would just call her mom names and run to her room and cry piteously. And when the mom wanted to connect with her and just go to the room and say, how are you, knock on the door, if she just tried to open the door, the girl would scream, "Get out of here!" And it was this ferocious rage and fear. When we started, this girl, when we started therapy at 12, she didn't want to talk about anything and said she didn't remember anything from before she came to the United States. And it wasn't a language issue. So I just want to make sure that that she wasn't a language issue. And what we started doing is playing games. For example, I took some lotion on my hands, and I put lotion on her arms, like from her elbows and then to her forearms and her hands, and made them really slippery with lotion. And I held on to them. This is a 12-year-old. I held on to them. And then I pretended that I'm trying to hold on, and then I'm slipping away from her because of the slippery hands. Now, as I'm pulling and moving back, I see this huge smile on her face, and when I'm almost about to lose her, contact with her hands, I said, "Oh," and then I fall back and go, "Oh no, I slipped away." And then I pop back up and grab her hands, and she's like reaching out to me like a baby with a big smile. And we do this a couple of times, and she's giggling. And each time she looks at her adoptive mom, and I think, it's really fun to be silly sometimes. You didn't know that. I don't know if did you have a chance to be silly when you were little? And she said, "Not really." She shrugged her hands or her shoulders. I had the mom do the same thing. And I saw the same look of this like very young, happy girl who was so eager and so wanted to connect. And what we did is we did those kinds of activities that you would think that a child of 12 didn't want and wouldn't participate in. And it's like she just kind of melted and soaked it in. This comes from my Theraplay training that I'm a Theraplay trainer and supervisor. And this is our work, is to create these moments of connection between parents and child. And we did this for like 2 years. Every week, she got so much better. And I said to them, "Do you still want us to keep coming? Because I see you've made so much progress." And they said, "This is our special time. We want to make this time just for the two of us. And even if, we're doing the same things over and over again, it's just our special playtime." And she didn't want to give it up for the world. And by that time, she was 14. I have so many different examples like that. But one of the most important things that happened is that the mother this adoptive mother had felt so demoralized and so just incompetent because her adoptive daughter was rejecting her. And what we do in Theraplay is we videotape the sessions, and then we have parent sessions that are once every month. And I showed her a bit of the video and said, "Look at how she's looking at you." And she said, "I just think, like, could it be that she really is smiling at me like that? Because I feel like maybe she's faking." And I said, "Oh, no, you can't fake this." And I said, "She really wants to be in contact with you." And this was the source, the beginning of this mother's awakening into like motherhood for the real, for the first, in a sort of claiming kind of way, where she was like, maybe this child here does actually need and want me. And she was able to change her mind about her ability to go into the room when her daughter was having a fit of rage and was crying piteously. And rather than feeling rejected, she had kind of the courage to sit next to her and do some of these activities with her. And the girl started really opening up and telling her about her day and coming and sitting on her lap. And she said, she said, "Mom, can I sleep with you in your bed?" And the mom said, "You can. What's wrong?" She said, "I'm afraid somebody's going to crawl through the window and kidnap me." And that's something that most likely she saw happen, or some other, something that did not come out of thin air. And the mom said, "Yes, and of course we'll it was hot that summer." And she said, "We'll lock the windows, we'll put the air conditioning on, we won't sleep with the windows open." And she slept in her bed for, 6 months. But that's what she needed. And that couldn't have come out in any other kind of more verbal kind of therapy, it was those awakenings of the attachment connection that I think really elicited the trust in the child and made the mom, claim her space as this girl's mother.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's a great example. One of the things that came through with that is also the baby smile. Like, you can't fake your humor. That's something that I've been aware of really early on. It's just something I always say to my friends. It's like, just you can't fake what you find funny. And I always just look at my friends, and I find it very telling of certain people. It's like, oh, you found that funny of all the things, and it's like, oh, that's who you are. Like, you really can't mistake your joy. One of the
That's right. Yeah.
One of the things,
And one of
go on.
I was just going to say that one of the most fascinating things about laughter is that you cannot be anxious and have an authentic laugh at the same time, because there are two mechanisms that are completely on off. And if you switch one on, the other turns off. So that's why the laughter is also such an indicator of health and growth, because you can just, wow, did you see that? You were able to be in that moment of joy with me. You're getting there and really becoming mindful of that joyful self.
And
It's so important.
And yeah, as the importance of it, like I remember tuning into just like some principles on this, and it was like laughter is actually like human beings' versions of grooming each other. As monkeys kind of groom and pick out like, little bits and pieces from each other's fur, laughing together is actually how humans groom each other. So when we're laughing together, it's actually like an internal kind of picking at the nits, maybe. I don't know.
Actually, it really is, because what it is it's stroking each other as if you are, fostering the other person's like ego in a way, like saying, "Oh yes, yes, yes," and there's nothing more attractive than somebody who finds you funny. It's like it's literally the be all of attraction is somebody who thinks you're charming and laughs at your jokes. So that's why it's a huge part of flirtation too. So it's definitely, I could totally see, that it's part of like the grooming is to, are you really listening to you? And you see my spark, which, is really fostered when you're an infant. I mean, oh my gracious, such a source of power to think, for you to see your parents laughing and enjoying you is like, that's like a lightning bolt of, of energy for the child.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to say about that now that I laugh at my own jokes. I sometimes stand there and I'm like, no one else is laughing, but I'm laughing, and everyone's like, what? Like, people will only start laughing because the fact that I'm laughing at my own jokes. But that's a little bit of a Amrit's neuroses, I guess, out there in the open.
Well, I think that's very evolved, actually.
You heard it here first. That's the inspired evolution, laughing at your own jokes.
Because you really enjoy yourself. You're not doing it for the other person. Although your laugh is so contagious that I think they will laugh anyway, just from your laughter.
Oh, touch wood. Thank you. So one of the things I wanted to drop in on, which I found quite remarkable in your sharing, was you mentioned these moments of connection, when this person is slipping, and then, there's that moment where you both smile, and there's this one moment of connection that happens. And I found it something remarkable just in your sharing. Like, the light bulb that went off in my head was, okay, so we can have sporadic moments of connection that can heal such extended periods of disconnection.
Yeah, because they really, really build on each other. Okay, because when you're sharing a moment with someone, and incidentally, you live with them, right? So I mean, this is not just a person on the street or on the train that you just catch eye contact with. That your natural tendency as a baby, then, as a human infant, is to look again and to say, can I replicate this? Could this be just a fluke, or can I replicate this? And so we're like experimenting. And so if a kid has had negative experiences and, was like harmed and abused and neglected in intimate moments of that could have been sharing and trusting moments, then a glimmer of hope and sparks in them, and they think, could this happen again? And then the parent has to find moments and try, and that builds a brand new muscle or a system, of a cycle of connection. So it doesn't happen just with one. And the parent actually is the one who needs to try to like replicate these moments or look for opportunities.
Instigate.
And they need to instigate it, and they need to also be really, really durable in their ego, not to get like so hurt that they're just reeling back, which really, it's very, very hard when you're being rejected a lot. But just to those glimmers of hope, the parent really needs a lot of support, but to latch onto those and make more of it. And that's meaning making. That's meaning making between parent and child, that says like, you're interesting, you're fun to be with, you have something to offer. I really enjoy you for just the way you are. So that's also why, this is not about performance. This is not about doing well or any kind of evaluation. It's just be who you were meant to be, and I enjoy you.
I was
It's
going to ask.
powerful.
Yeah, I love that. So words that are coming through to me as in qualities of a parent that can help a child that may be disconnected is playful, accepting. Are there other virtues in there that you would invite in?
Yes, I would also add curious and empathic. Luckily for us, it spells pace, which is also an important aspect of timing and rhythm. So it's a lovely acronym: playful, accepting, curious, and empathic. My wonderful teacher and mentor, Dan Hughes, created the dyadic developmental psychotherapy model, which which I'm a trainer in. And the acronym is really his attitude that he developed, and that I hope to embody in my work, in my daily life. But there's, instead of asking curiosity. So if we talked about acceptance and playfulness, curiosity is that a child does something, or a parent, your spouse, it doesn't matter who it is, does something that's truly baffling to you, because you're a different person and you can't understand them. The idea of curiosity is to ask a question in the most curious tone to find out, I wonder what made you say that, or I wonder what made you think that way, or I wonder how did you feel about that experience we just had. It's a tone rather than content, and it means to say like, what is what is it that you're really thinking or feeling underneath. And you will, if you say it in a curious way, you will get their truth. They will be able to give you a sense of what their motivation was, and then you can have a ton more empathy and understanding. So it is curiosity is really kind of the foundation for the drive for connection. Is what's going on in your world, like your neighborhood, your mind is such a foreign place to me. Tell me what's going on for you. So that's curiosity, and it's the best way of being able to understand a child who does things that are really completely strange, or totally, that you just feel like you'd rather just bite their head off and tell them, go to your room, you horrible person, you're grounded forever. And then empathy. Empathy is, the word empathy is so overused. It's just like, especially if people say something like, oh, I can understand how you feel, or it sounds like you're feeling sad. That is grating on people's nerves in the worst way, because it sounds so clinical and dry. What people want is to have empathy through you're saying, aha, or yeah, or gotcha, or, you have to embody your empathy by saying, yeah, 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 something that's more vocal and more body. And that is what we think of as empathy. Like, I really believe you. I'm really listening to you. I understand, and I don't think you're crazy. That's really the message of empathy, and that those mechanisms, playfulness, acceptance, curiosity, and empathy, will go so far in reducing the amount of conflict between parent and child, and anybody really, and gaining understanding, and then the connection and the cooperation comes so much more easily.
Because that was going to be my question. What is the symptomatic of a healthy functioning relationship? Is it the connections and and the joy? What do you see as being the positive outcomes of
Mhm.
applying this PACE methodology?
Okay, so one thing is you're going to get a really, you're going to have a ton of ruptures in your relationships, like constant disagreements, constant different ways of looking, constant like slights and hurts. One of the most important aspects is the ability to repair. And repair doesn't necessarily mean saying I'm sorry and making a full acknowledgement and a whole dialogue. It's a bid for connection that's like, let me reconnect with you and show you I still want you in my circle. I still want to be us to be in the same sphere. So it may just mean checking in on somebody and saying, hey, I'm cutting the salad. You're so good at cutting cucumbers. Can you come and do it with me? Or, just sitting on the couch and sitting close and like touching forearm to forearm, or giving a look that says, I'm interested in you. And sometimes verbal acknowledgement of, oh, that was really unpleasant. We had for that disagreement. I'm really like happy for us to chat about it, or do you just want to, hang out together? But it very commonly is very hard for parents to make overtures to their children to say, I'm sorry, or I want you, let's resolve this, without giving a lecture and explaining themselves, which is actually the worst thing you can do. So if any parent is listening, just the repair needs to be, hey, bud, let's go do something together. Not, do you understand why you were in timeout? Or, I didn't mean to make you feel upset, but it's my job to teach you as a parent. That lecture takes away all of your bids for connection. So it has to be like, shut your mouth and just do, you know? So yeah, so I think repair is one of the most important things. The other thing, is the awareness of the parent, and that the parent needs to be able to check her own stuff. Our stuff is from our childhood that is constantly roaring up in us, and we're like vomiting it on our children. And then we have to say, wait a minute, hold on, I got to take a minute. I got to recenter, got to drop in, as you say, and be aware of what is motivating me, what is making me feel so intensely in need of control right now. And then also, I mean, the one thing, it's so hard because everything that children do, everything that parents do, our children are watching. So how we treat ourselves is paramount. Do you show self-compassion? That's the question of the day. As a parent, are you compassionate to yourself, or does your voice constantly saying, I messed up, I'm not good enough, I'm too fat, I'm not good at my job, people don't like me? That's exactly what your child is going to absorb. Whether you give them a million compliments and take them to all the best ballet classes, it doesn't matter.
So they're modeling. Yeah,
Mm.
wow, all three of those are so important. The first, when you were talking about repair, I found it quite it was the resilience of the relationship between the pair of you.
Yes.
Yeah, I found that yeah, that's what was echoing in there for me. in terms of being able to repair, some of the examples you gave, and I'm probably just seeking to gain some further
Sure,
clarification, is
of course.
let's say you're how do you discipline without needing to repair? Or there's going to be, how does one go about enforcing discipline then? If it's because it can maybe there's a part of me that wonders if it can be play all the time.
Oh, no, not at all.
Versus, yeah. So
Oh, no,
that's
you
kind of,
got to have, there are consequences. When you can repair by saying, by not judging the kids' moral, like motives and ascribing negative moral motives to them. I'll just give you a perfect example. This is so common. A kid took his brother's like iPhone from his brother's room, and he wasn't supposed to go in there. And so, the iPhone is missing and it's found in his brother's room. His brother's phone is found in his room. And the mom says, well, how did this phone get here? Where did did you take your brother's phone? He says, no, but I found it in your room. So why are you lying to me? It's not even so much that you took your brother's iPhone from his room without his permission, even though you're not supposed to go in there. And we know your iPhone was taken from you because you were playing with the wrong game. So it's that you lied to me. Okay. And then we have this whole thing of this cascade of shame. The kid is now in triple jeopardy because he was punished to begin with. He went to place and took something that wasn't his, and now he's been called a liar. And this is a huge trigger for parents. If they think their kid is not honest with them, it's like this huge trust issue, and it goes so downhill from there. I would suggest taking out the morality altogether and the judgment and say, hey, you know what? I found your brother's phone in your room. So now we're gonna, you're gonna give it back to him, and there's gonna be some kind of consequence for taking his phone. Well, I'm curious though, what is it? What made you go in there? What was what were you trying to do, and what were you feeling? And would say, well, I knew my friends were texting about going to the park on the WhatsApp, and I didn't know what was going on, and I just wanted to find out what they were doing. And I say, okay, that makes complete sense. Thanks for sharing that with me, son. I'm happy to know what's on your mind. Okay. And then you can say to him, what are we going to do? You took what are you going to do that's like to make it up to your brother? What that you think would be an appropriate gesture to show him that you respect his things. Well, I don't know, I could, do you want to write him a note, or you could suggest some things, and do you want to give him something of yours to show him? But that's the consequence, is that he has to think with you about what he can do to sort of make it up for violating his brother's privacy or trust or whatever. And then you also know that he needs a way to connect with his friends if he's and maybe you can help him with that. But I didn't catch him in a lie because I knew I don't need to ask him how that phone got there. And my tone was not that of, you're a no good, rotten, crappy kid who's going to go to jail if you don't stop it. And you're not this disappointment to me, and watch out. That's the consequence. And if the parent had decided, based on this, then you're not going to be able to go out with your friends, that's a consequence too. It's up to them to decide that. I wouldn't recommend it. But to separate the consequence from the actual connection with the child and I still think you're a good person. I understand you, and you're not like in trouble. You're just, this is life on life's terms. If you take somebody's phone, you lose a privilege, right? It's kind of, there is some truth to the rules. They're there for a reason.
Thank you so much for clarifying that.
Yeah.
One of the things that's jumping out at me is Potentially, and I probably am thinking about other people rather than myself, but
No
potentially even
problem.
myself. But
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
like, there's a lot of, you work with a lot of play, and I wonder, what is it in your mind that leads that as we get older, this is a gross generalization, that as we get older, we tend to play less and less. What's going on there?
Oh, because life is so serious and we have to be so serious and we have so many expectations for us to, attain our, you know, consume our goods and buy our cars and like spend every moment thinking about how to make money. I mean, I really think this is part of society that just like you know dampens our energies and our creativity to just connect and play and dance and recreate and make love and have just like you don't have the bandwidth for any of that if all of it is about stress all the time.
Hmm.
So I really think it's like imperative to disconnect somehow and put boundaries. I really believe in like consuming less and having smaller houses. And I don't even believe, I mean, this is really, in America, this is so radical to say, like, I don't even believe in college, university. Like, I don't know um, uh, what is the path that would make a person have a balanced life where they can have enough money to live but also have plenty of time and energy to like sleep well and eat well and different things like that? It's practically non-existent. There's hardly a model for that.
Hmm.
But I think that's one of the things I gravitate towards the people who are exceedingly playful and silly. That's what I
Hmm.
want. I want people who have that playful energy and that they're still like really young at heart.
Hmm. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah,
One of
it's
the
a really
things
good
I
question.
feel like it'd be inappropriate to let you go without asking this question.
Mhm.
You mentioned the word attachment before. I feel like it underpins quite a bit of stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about what attachment means to you and potentially what it underpins?
Okay. It's the sense of feeling like you have a safe harbor and that it comes from the most primary relationships of whoever took care of you when you were an infant, whoever came when you cried or when you called or where you were hungry or you were wet or tired or sick or in pain, and somebody not only came and met your need by changing you or feeding you, but sat with you and said, "Oh, you're such a hungry baby," and held you with their loving eyes, makes all of those neural connections in the brain of a sense of I am worthy and the world is a trustworthy place and it's an interesting place. And you have to have those things happen over and over again where when those people come and they treat you gently, they're not mad at you for having a dirty diaper or that you're annoying them, and that they have that in their eyes, you can see, I really enjoy you. That is what gives a person a sense of security that they can go out into the world and say, I can make it today. Like I can get my needs met. If I have to ask for directions or if I get lost, somebody will help me. And if the one person who's a stranger doesn't know or is not nice to me, I can still find another person who I can, who can guide me. And it's because of this inner belief that comes from those early experiences of that security of like both the somebody will take care of me and protect me and the joy. And that's the platform for so much of our human experience.
Hmm. Can I ask, what do you feel to be the most formative period of a child's life? And what point does it stop? At what point are parents off the hook?
Parents off the hook. I see. That's really easy. Okay. There's no doubt that scientifically that the period between, third trimester and the second year of life, so through the second year of life, is the most impactful time of brain and neural growth, and all of the richness of the experience there is like sets the tone and the trajectory for the rest of the child's development. And it continues and it continues and it continues, and the mind is, the brain is really plastic, and the subsequent experiences make a huge difference, and it never stops. But the longer you get away from those first 2 years of life, that those patterns are set more prominently and will take more effort to mold into, a more healthy direction. The nice thing is first of all, we never stop needing our parents. If you're talking about like the functional thing where parents are off the hook, they don't need to support their kid anymore, who's, should be on their own and making their own
dream.
Yeah. No. Is definitely the case. You can what it's not the financial aspect. It's the need to come back to a safe harbor, into the loving arms of somebody who will accept you and who will see you for your essence and not judge you for, the horrible mistakes or that you've made, or the shame that you feel about yourself. And that, it's still literally when you walk in the front door and somebody offers you a cup of tea and says, sit down, they're there if you're upset or something like that, and that it doesn't matter what you did. That's really what people need, and they continue to need it. And the nice message of hope that I really want to tell you, Amrit, because this is something that people come to me with all the time. They say, as parents, I work with so many parents, it's devastating. They say, I didn't know any of this, and I really hurt my child. In his early years, I yelled at him, and I was an addict and whatever. And now, he's 16. Is it too late? And the most beautiful thing in the entire world that I can say is, it is never too late to restore the relationship with your child. If you do the work, if you're there for in a really good and sort of quiet way where you're receptive to them and you're no longer reactive, and you show them that you're interested in them in the most basic level, you're willing to take ownership and responsibility for the things that you did in the past, you will see gifts in the relationship that can change no matter how old the child is as an adult. And that the subsequent years of the relationship can make up for all those years. And you can literally, be on your deathbed and look at your child and say, my God, we have such a deep and satisfying relationship. Thank God that I did this work. It's never, ever too late to repair with your child. So that's the message of hope to the parents out there.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And for those ages, third trimester to the age of 2, ideally, where is the invitation to embody those values of pace?
I think when they're babies, it's a little different, because we're dealing with something that's it's just this most instinctual primary being, right? So when I think of pace for babies, I would think of, let's say a baby. Now, I wish that this is a podcast, so they can't see my body, but let's say they can.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was not aware that we were really going to be on camera. But if a baby says, bristles and goes like a 2-year-old goes, just like that, and you go, oh, and show them, I saw that, like we experienced that together. So that is that kind of acceptance and empathy that I'm talking about. As far as even going younger, when a baby is colicky and they have a pain and you're up with them in the middle of the night and you just don't know what will make them feel better, just the actual rocking and shushing and humming and swinging and swaying and stomping and all the things that you do, that is showing I accept you in the most radical way. I won't leave you alone. And that nervous system to nervous system matching of my body is trying to vibrate on the same level as your internal pain makes the baby's pain lessen, because when humans feel I'm not alone in my pain, it literally lessens the pain.
That's amazing.
So it really is. Mm-hmm.
I want to sort of take that conversation just a little bit further. The nervous system's vibrating, and that kind of, what do we call that? Co-regulation. Yeah.
Bravo.
So the two different nervous systems co-regulating. Is it too far of a stretch for me to sort of allude to potentially that's where like a lot of intergenerational stuff, potentially even an epigenetic conversation drops in at that point, where our nervous systems co-regulated to meet our parents' needs, and then we kind of hand that down to our children in terms of where our nervous system is at and how that co-regulation happens. Is that a safe sort of like, am I pulling at threads here, or is that a thing potentially?
I think you're getting, I think in different language, you're getting at the same sort of theme. So, because what you're saying, we sort of nurse various intergenerational messages in our mother's milk, but how do we do it? So if let's say a man comes in the room and my mother tenses up and becomes really quiet and still, I, as the baby in her arms, will feel that, and I will have that same reaction. And so, yeah, I mean, on a bodily level, the baby can tell when the mother is tense. And it could be a certain tone of voice in the male. It could be the way that he moves his body, whatever it is. But then that is inherited. It's a learned experience that the baby will then not be aware of when she's older, but she will have the same sort of visceral reaction to certain kinds of males of authority or whatever she was sort of like soaking in. And yeah, so that's part of like that there's something that we need to start making that conscious. That's the part of the work, so that we can untangle and uncouple some of those reactions, some of the negative reactions. Yeah.
Seems like initial parenting requires a lot of awareness. Is that what you would say as well, or is it just have as much fun?
And yet none of us. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. You say it again.
Thanks. As you were going to say, go on.
And yet none of us are aware, I mean, we have babies. We just do. There's not a prep class. Actually, shockingly, there's not even a universal support group like there is for like AA and whatever, because you really would need it. I think everybody could use it. So
you probably. We had Dr. Shafali Sabari on here, and when she was pretty radical, she said, "Conscious parenting, don't have children." It's just like, wow.
If you really want to be radical about it, yeah.
But I think
absolutely
that alludes to what you're saying in terms of there is no manual, there is no kind of waypointer. Which actually I've been. Before, like having you on, I was looking at there's a lot of YouTube channels of people describing their own journeys with their own children, almost turning, like, I need a better way to language this, so pardon me, I'm doing this for the first time, but like almost reality TVing their life with their kids in the early stages, because I think there's a lot of people following, because I think there's just not that many accessible resources that people can really connect with and bond with for those early stages of a child's career.
Yeah,
child's being.
Child's career. Yeah, that's really painful, because I think it's so isolating as it is as a parent. I would say that this message, the message is, Okay, none of us are, we're all unaware when we have kids because we actually don't even know. There's no prep class that would be able to predict what the child would trigger in you until he actually does. And it's like a gift. If you look at it, the child is there to teach us something about ourselves. And so it's really learn as you go. But the key is take that moment, take that time to think about it, reflect, journal, speak with a friend who has similar, who's gone through similar things, or seek therapy, because the child is there to teach you something about yourself. And that's how we become, more aware.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Dafna. Yeah, there is so much ground that we've covered here today. One of the biggest takeaways personally for me, and the inspirational one, is for those that are tuning in, it is never too late to play. I think that's like one of the biggest ones, and also the fact that it's just you can just create moments of connection which can heal periods of disconnection. So that really is an inspirational voice in there. Is there anything else you wanted to share before I let you go today?
I think I want to. I want to thank you for your work, for being a ray of hope. That's really important. There's a ton of hope. I've really seen like miracles happen between parents and children. Change is completely possible, even in the most impossible situations. But we cannot do it alone. We cannot do it alone. We need another person. We need help. We need the help of lots of people. So if you have a problem, talk, say something, open your mouth, reach out to somebody. Yeah. And so that's why I appreciate your work.
That's right. Thank you so much, Dafna. I want to thank you for your time, your energy, your presence, and all the hope that's impregnated in the message that you've shared today. Thank you so much for being here with us. And also, it's not just today, it's a lifetime's work that you've informed into your presence here today. So thank you so much for doing all this work to help us on this path. And as always, from the Inspired Evolution community and myself, wishing you the best. And thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. It's been wonderful to be with you.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, leave us a comment. And if you want to stay in tune for new episodes launching every Monday, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay inspired to evolve.